Hitler went for the youth. The enemy always goes for the youth. We must take up arms and go for our youth.
This is Gene Bailey on the left, televangelist. This is another televangelist on the right, Hank Kunneman. I've talked about him a few times. This TV show that we're watching here, Flashpoint, is an incredibly influential and popular program on the right, especially among Christian nationalists. This show is owned and operated by Kenneth Copeland, and it's very influential. The people on this program are extremely influential within the Republican Party. They've even had Donald Trump on this program before. They're outlining their plan. This is what they intend to do to turn the country into a Christian nation. He says he wants to take over the youth the way that Hitler did. Seriously, does it get any more on the nose than this? February 14th, 2023. Check this one out.
You know, when we look back on Hitler, Hitler went for the youth. The enemy always goes for the youth. We must take up arms and go for our youth, arms of the truth and of godly principles. But I want you to speak to that and what you're doing there.
Sure.
With all your publications.
Okay, so they've clearly stated that they want to brainwash children, right? They think that the left is doing this. They're not. FYI. They think the left is doing this, and in retaliation, they need to brainwash children. So here's the plan. Hank Kunneman is a comic artist or whatever, and he's producing books. He produces children's books that they read. Listen to what he has to say here about it.
These are just comic books that I have with Captain Zepto, and again, it's just alternatives that make families laugh, but also children can look and see identifiable characters that have moral, biblical values that they can have.
Their values are not the values espoused by mainstream Christianity. They're values espoused by extremist Christianity. The nutcases among them. The people that are as extreme as it gets. So I don't know that it's really fair to call it biblical values exactly. I don't know that they represent all of Christianity. I don't feel like that's the case. But okay, it's a small detail, but it's an important one.
That they can have implemented in their life. And so I appreciate what God is doing through Kirk Cameron and others.
So Kirk Cameron, he mentioned there just now. Kirk Cameron wrote a bunch of children's books. And not only that, he started a publishing company for children's books called Brave Books. So what did I do? I went to Brave Books and I found some of them. And I actually purchased a bunch of these books. I want to read one on stream. But before I do, I want to outline the other way in which they're trying to, what would you call it, take over the world or take control of the United States. The first one is by indoctrinating children the exact same way that Hitler did. His words, not mine. Listen to the second thing that they intend to do to take over the United States. Mid-January 2023.
These flash talks, I'm calling them flash talks, okay? What
he's talking about a conference that he's holding.
You're going to learn from this flash, how to go back to your house, wherever you live, and learn how to flip your school board so that your kids, if they're going to public school, you can start taking over the school board. And you go, well, that sounds like we're trying to take over the world. Yes, we are. I fully admit that. That's exactly what we're doing.
So those are the two ways in which they're primarily trying to take over the United States, by writing children's books and cramming them down people's throats, by putting them in every library from here to Texas, and by flipping school boards, by winning these elections. So here's what we have to do to fix it. Number one, expose the propaganda for what it is. Talk about this. Point out that these books are out there and absolutely nutty. And number two, vote in your school board elections. Look, the presidential election is a drop in the bucket, okay? It's important. It's very, very important you get out there and vote for it. But school board elections are so small. And, you know, a lot of people who don't have kids don't even vote in these. You need to get down there and vote in these elections. Vote in these school board elections. Hell, even better, run for school board member. Run for, elected official if you can, if you're capable, if you have the money and the resources and everything else. It's important. So with all that being said, I wanted to take a look at some of these books that they're producing right now. I went to Kirk Cameron's website, Brave Books or whatever, and bought 3 children's books that they produced. I'm going to run a poll real quick. Which book should we read? We're going to read a book right now on stream. Here are the options. We've got Paws Off My Cannon. They're all children's books. They're all, propaganda, right-wing extremist propaganda. So Paws Off My Cannon, Fight for Freedom Island, or Little Lives Matter. And when we come back, I'll find out what the determination was, and we'll read that one, okay? So I took a poll right before I started this story to see what people wanted to read. The winner is Paws Off My Cannon. Okay, so be it. Let's take a look at the book, Paws Off My Cannon. So this is the book, Paws Off My Cannon. By the by, I'm doing a whole series on this on my Telltale Reads YouTube channel. I'm reading these books right now. I'm also reading Kenneth Copeland's book, The Law of Prosperity, on there. I release them on different days. So yeah, just go to my Telltale Reads YouTube channel. It's linked in the description of this video. And check out the other episodes of me reading propagandistic, nonsensical children's books. Or even Kenneth Copeland's book. Or I read that one book that appeared a while back, Donald Trump, the Son of Man, the Christ. I read that entire series. I read one of Greg Locke's books, too. So check it out. Go to my Telltale Reads YouTube channel. See what's on there. It's pretty interesting. All right, let's read this book, Paws Off My Cannon. See what this children's propaganda is all about. Bongo loved food. In particular, Bongo loved cupcakes, which is why he lived in Mushroom Village. Every night, Bongo and the other villagers sat around the Rock and Rollin' River eating delicious mushroom-shaped cupcakes with loads of red and blue and green icing. But one night, the picnic went terribly wrong. Was there a mass attack? Is that what went terribly wrong? Let me guess. Bongo suffered at the hands of somebody, a bad guy with a hand cannon, and Bongo was the good guy with the hand cannon that shoots coconuts. Is that right? I knew it. A hungry hyena sprang onto the riverbank waving a coconut cannon. Bongo's best friend Bonnie squealed, "The hyenas are here for our cupcake dinners." The hyena, quick as a flash, grabbed her picnic basket full of sweets. Bongo chased the hyena in circles and squares, but chabam! Bongo and Bonnie landed flat on their bums with bulbous bumps growing on their heads. Before they could count to 5, the hyena was halfway home to the deserted desert. Hyenas were the only bad thing about living in Mushroom Village. They were lazy and didn't like cooking, so they roamed around looking for a sweet meal to steal. Wow, this is really, really interesting. Like, the subtext in this is just absurd. Oh my God. This subtext is probably stuff that children wouldn't fully understand because they're not, like, deeply entrenched in these culture war issues, not to the degree that their parents are entrenched in this stuff. But, you know, a lot of this, like, I hesitate to point back to race for certain things, but I feel like the subtext here is kind of pointing at, like, the black community identifying with identifying with the hyena and stuff, right? Is it just me? Or is that, like, part of this overarching subtext? Remember, these books are supposed to be, like, the most conservative of the most Christian messaging out there. If you want a conservative Christian message, this is where you would find it. Right away, the leader of the town called a meeting. "Poor Bongo and Bonnie, we must find a way to stop all this violence." Bonnie spoke up. "We should make a rule and write it on a big sign. No one can bring coconut cannons into Mushroom Village. Then we'll be safe." "Right on," said half the village. "Not groovy," said the other half. All right, here's the thing. Here's the actual solution to the problem that they're completely ignoring. The hyena in this scenario lives in a completely different location. It says he lives in the deserted desert and he came from a totally different area, right? They're regulating, or they're attempting to regulate this town of, what was it? The hell did they call this place? Mushroom Village? Yeah, Mushroom Village. They're attempting to regulate guns in Mushroom Village, but the hyena does not live in Mushroom Village. So naturally, that's not going to work because the hyena still has his gun and they don't have a police force, apparently. So let me draw out the problem as it really exists. An actual parallel to real life rather than this fabricated nonsense. in real life, the hyena lives in this same village. Now, we don't know which person is a hyena and which is like a gorilla, a good guy or a bad guy. So what we need to do is limit the number of hand cannons available that are floating around. If you want to own a hand cannon, that's perfectly okay, but you have to know how to handle it. You have to have a ridiculous amount of training. You have to be licensed. You have to keep it in a safe that's locked at all times. Feel free to own a hand cannon, but it shouldn't be the kind of thing that somebody could just see sitting in your nightstand, grab, and then stick somebody up to steal their mushroom cupcakes. So limit the number of hand cannons that are around, and that would include the hyena, because he lives here too, and create a police force for Mushroom Village. They don't even have to have hand cannons. The police don't necessarily, but at least post police in various areas where the most hand cannons are showing up. There are real world, logical, obvious solutions to this. But you know what this book is actually teaching children? To think in blacks and whites. It's teaching children to think, well, there are only two solutions. Either get more hand cannons or have zero hand cannons. There's no in between here. That's extremism. When you have no in between, when there is no middle ground, no compromise, no solution that everybody can agree upon, you're creating a generation of extremists. That's what's happening with this book, with all of these books. It's a whole book publishing company that was just shouted out by Donald Trump the other day. They're creating a generation of extremists. Now, will the children pick up on the subtext here? Probably not. They're probably too young, unless you're reading these books to them at like 8, 9, 10 years old. And even then, maybe they're not picking up on the subtext. But if you remember, this is exactly what Hitler suggested. Get the children, and you'll have them for life.
Hitler went for the youth. The enemy always goes for the youth. We must take up arms and go for our youth.
Does it get any more on the nose than that? Does it get any more obvious? So I just explained why this is an absolutely absurd book. Let's keep reading and see how much more absurd it gets. Half the village said, yes, get rid of the hand cannons. The other half said, not groovy. Coconut cannons are how we protect ourselves, Bongo rubbed his head. We should keep our cannons close in case the hyenas come back. No, you shouldn't. You should have guards stationed there who know how to handle hand cannons, and they can be given hand cannons if you want. This is something we can talk about. You are not a vigilante. You should not have a hand cannon. If you get in a situation where you have to use a gun on somebody to protect somebody else's life or whatever, the last decision that you ever want to make is to use that gun. Look at Kyle Rittenhouse. He shouldn't have been there. He shouldn't have had his gun. He shouldn't have fired on those people, and he should have gone to jail. But he didn't. Do you think he regrets doing what he did, though? Maybe, hypothetically speaking, his decision was just. Let's just say, for the sake of argument, Kyle Rittenhouse's decision to pull the trigger and kill people was a just decision for self-defense. Okay, but do you really want to spend the next few years letting your future rest in the hands of the justice system while it sorts all that out? If you pull that trigger, do you really want to spend the next few years going to court, sitting in jail, because he definitely sat in jail for a while, Kyle Rittenhouse did, dealing with lawyers, worrying about being sued by the families, worrying about spending the next 20 years of your life in jail? Maybe it was a just shot. Maybe in your case, the vigilantism would be the right call for your protection. Do you really want to spend the next 20 years waiting and hoping and thinking maybe the court system will side with you? If you have to use a gun, your life is almost certainly already over. Not just because you risk being shot, but because the court system is going to litigate every fine detail of the decision that you just rashly made. You should not be using a gun for self-defense. Ever. Under any circumstances. I guess if you're in your house and a burglar comes in, you can use a shotgun. Those would probably be best for home defense. No reason rifles should exist, in my opinion. No reason pistols should exist. If they do, we're not getting rid of them, so I guess we should just license them heavily and create an insurance program that pays out to victims of mass shootings and stuff. Anyway, let's keep reading. So, what's his name? Bongo? Yeah, Bongo wants to use his gun to protect people around him like a f***ing idiot. Silly Bongo, Bonnie said, if you disagree with us, we'll have to split Mushroom Village in half, and it'll be all your fault. Then we'll know who's really safe. Right, so more subtext. This is more culture war nonsense. Split Mushroom Village in half, national divorce, Confederacy versus Union. They're basically trying to blame the schism on anybody to the left of hunting the homeless for sport in this book. Now, again, this subtext probably isn't picked up by children, but it's there. After arguing back and forth and back, the village split down the middle. On the west side, the villagers put all the cannons away. Bonnie smiled as she threw hers into the river, but Bongo knew it was a mistake. Sighing a deep sigh, Bongo packed up all his cannons and pushed them across the river to the east. So they're going to create a fake anecdote here where Bongo saves the town. And as a result of saving the town, everybody decides to bring hand cannons back or whatever. Kids are going to look back on this story, to this event, and think to themselves, it worked in Mushroom Village. It would work in real life. That's how propaganda works. Get them as young as possible. You'll have them for life. No coconut cannons allowed. No cannons here. Still no cannons. Bunch of signs. Then Bonnie's side tore down the bridge and made signs. The next morning, Bonnie and the animals on the west ate their cupcake breakfast without fear. The signs will protect us, Bonnie said. On the east bank, Bongo strapped extra coconuts to his chest just in case, and it was a good thing, too. Just as he was about to bite into his green and purple breakfast cupcake, a watchdog howled, "Hyenas on the horizon." Again, the reason that it didn't work in this scenario is because the hyenas came from outside. If this was a federal program, or hell, on a local level, it's perfectly safe to reduce the number of guns. If you want to be one of those responsible gun owners, you are perfectly free. But they're creating that false dichotomy, that black and white. Either we can have 0 guns and there will be a national divorce, a civil war. We split the country in two and you have 0 guns, none, literally none. And the other group has as many as they want. This is a false scenario. This is not how it works in real life. We can have a situation where there are fewer guns. Oh, it's sideways. Sorry. I'll flip it in the final product. You guys watching won't even realize it was flipped. Bonnie just glanced at the hyenas and shrugged. They can't bring their cannons to our side, she said. Bongo jumped and gripped his cannon. They've come for breakfast. Oh, now he wants to be a hard vigilante. Right. Chaboom went the hyena's coconuts. Chabash, never bend the knee, went Bongo's cannon. Wow, this is cringy. Never bend the knee. Oh, this is painful. God, it's so cringy, I want to vomit. In 5 seconds flat, Bongo and his buddies had given all the hyenas their own bulbous bumps, and quick as a flash, they scrambled away. But they didn't run back to the deserted desert. The hyenas leapt across the river to the west side of the village, and Bonnie gasped. They broke the rule. The sign specifically says they can't bring their cannons. If you reduce the number of guns, it will be harder for criminals to get their hands on them. It will be less likely that children are going to take their parents' gun out of the nightstand and go to a school with it, okay? This is so obvious, I can't believe I have to explain it. But they're hitting every major trope, every major claim by the NRA and gun rights nutcases. This is a false dichotomy, and it's disgusting that they're propagandizing like this to children. Before long, the hyenas had taken all of the cupcake breakfasts on the whole west side of Mushroom Village, and not a single animal was left without a coconut-shaped bump. After the hyenas fled, Bongo stood biting his nails. What if the hyenas hurt Bonnie? But the sign was still standing and the rule was in place. No coconut cannons on the west side of the village. This is even more subtext. I guess obey laws no matter what. I mean, this is like a tenet of fascism. There is no good reason to ever break a law, or there's no reason to ever break the morality that has been created by this outside group or whatever. Slowly, Bongo set down his cannon. Swiftly, he swam across the river. Silently, he crept through the crumbling town. The crumbling town, okay? Apparently, the towns fall apart if they don't have cupcakes in them. I didn't know that. Phew! There was Bonnie, bruised but not battered. Bongo scooped her up and helped her stand. In real life, Bonnie would be dead. She wouldn't be bruised or battered. She would be dead. And so would everyone else in the town. This is usually how it happens. The hyenas do not obey our laws, Bonnie announced. If we want to protect ourselves, we must be ready to fight back. The animals nodded. They tore down the signs and bound up their bumps. When the hyenas returned for lunch, they were dazed and confused. Every animal in Mushroom Village was armed with a weapon, and Bongo stood at their head. Lunch is served, Bongo growled. Getting retribution, apparently. It's a good thing to get revenge on people, okay? After a chabash and a few chabops, the hyenas bounded away, howling and whining, tummies grumbling grumpily. And so that night the picnic continued. Bongo and the other villagers sat around the rockin' river eating delicious mushroom-shaped cupcakes with loads of purple and yellow and orange icing. They ate in peace because they knew Bongo would protect them with his coconut cannons. That's what police are for, and if we reduce the number of guns floating around and make sure every person that owns one is highly trained, knows exactly what they're doing with it, pays insurance to guarantee that it's perfectly safe, and the insurance company can pay for any damages or deaths or whatever that result from the ownership of their weapon. And if we made sure that people had their guns locked in safes so they couldn't be sold or stolen or taken to school by their kid, I'd be a lot happier with the situation. But that's not what's happening. You know what's happening? Bongo is literally passing them out to men, women, and children, everybody, like they're candy. That's what's actually happening. And the police don't even exist in this world, apparently. The police are here to prevent this type of situation, or to investigate it, or to act as a deterrent to some degree, at the very least. In this cartoon, they could act as guards. Have guards to stand by while you eat your cupcakes. They don't want that. They just want everybody to own a gun. What a violent children's story. Absolutely. What a violent children's story. What? Thank you, Scooter Weebles. Good point. What kind of a sick, depraved, mind comes up with this idea that they want to give this to children? This story. Bongo loved food, but most of all, Bongo loved his village. Before long, Bongo received a mysterious letter. Dear Bongo, the courageous use their strength not to hide, but to defend the defenseless. Your eagerness to protect your village without sacrificing honor or integrity shows a strength of your character far beyond your years. Freedom Island needs heroes like you. If you are willing to defend our dear island, answer the call. Journey to Wizard's Way by the first day of fall. Hurry, our nation cannot hold back these dark forces much longer. Accepting your speedy arrival, the legends of Freedom Island. Look at this. They've got a little section here of fun. That's just, my God, dude, what is wrong with people? Conservative Christian books. You remember what they said, right?
Hitler went for the youth. The enemy always goes for the youth. We must take up arms and go for our youth.
They're going for the youth. They're going for children. They are brainwashing them. They're doing everything they can to brainwash them. Ron DeSantis banned books from Florida libraries and schools and stuff like that unless explicitly approved. And I would bet $1 million, not that I have it, but if I did, I would bet it, that this is one of the books that's going to be approved to be in the schools and the libraries in Florida. Absolutely nuts, man. Like I said, if you want to see more stuff like this, follow me over to my Telltale Reads channel. I'm going to be reading this whole series. I think it's kind of fascinating, actually, to pick apart the propaganda, the way that they use it and everything. So, yeah, follow me on over. Thank you guys so much for listening. Or let me say that again. So, yeah, follow me over and let me know what you thought about the book in the comments. I thought it was just depraved. I'm recording this the next day because I kind of ran out of time. But I just wanted to kind of scan through, the ending of this book. Apparently they have, fun activities for kids, quote unquote, fun activities. If there are Bible verses in this, they're certainly not fun activities. But let's see what's in it. To your family. Introduction. Brave Books has created the Brave Challenge to drive home key lessons and values illustrated in the story. Each activity takes between 10 and 20 minutes. Family-focused and collaborative, the Brave Challenge is a quick and fun option for family game night. Right, so when kids are reading this book, the subtext isn't obvious to them, but it'll probably be obvious to the adult that's reading it to them, and the adult is expected to explain it. And I'm assuming that these quote-unquote fun activities that are in the back of this book are probably going to be done with the adult, so the adult can explain why guns are good and everybody and their brother should have one, and there should be absolutely zero limits on it. Brave Challenge Key. Read aloud to the children, one child modification for parents only, and roll the die for the hyenas. For parents only? Is there a for parents only section here? There is. Oh, wow. Holy shit. Okay, let's take a look at what the parents only section says in a second. The Brave Challenge. Welcome to Team Brave. Your mission for this Brave Challenge is to defend Mushroom Village from the terrible hyenas. To get started, grab a sheet of paper and a pencil and draw the scoreboard titled Team Brave versus Team Hyenas, like in the one shown. Okay. So here's the for parents only segment. While the children create the scoreboard, decide on a reward for victory. Here are a few ideas. Take the child to a shooting range. Now, it doesn't say that. I'm just kidding. That wouldn't surprise me at all, though, to find that that's in the list. Baking cupcakes or cookies. Okay, that's wholesome. Going swimming. Also wholesome. Movie night. Playing the children's favorite game. Buying candy bars. Riding bikes. Whatever gets your kiddos excited. All right, that was wholesome. The book itself is not wholesome, though. You're literally trying to convince children that it should be okay for everybody from 6 years old to 60 years old to own a stick that, when pointed at a human being, ends their life. You're trying to convince them that those sticks should be in everyone's hands. There's nothing wholesome about that, but okay. How to play. In this Brave Challenge, Team Brave, the children, will compete against Team Hyenas to earn points. As each team earns points, keep track on the scoreboard you just created. At the end of all three activities, the team with the most points wins, okay? Winning. At the end, if Team Brave has earned more points than the Hyenas, then they have successfully defended Mushroom Village. The prize for winning will be fill in blank here. Let's begin. Dana Loesch. Introducing Dana Loesch. I've never heard of this person before. Dana Loesch is a conservative political commentator and popular influencer who's spent her career bringing awareness to issues such as Second Amendment rights. She helped Brave Books write this story and the Brave Challenge. She will be popping in to give you ideas on how you can explain these concepts to your child. Right, there you go. So the subtext probably isn't obvious to children, but they expect the adults to explain it to them. Just dark, man. That's crazy. Dana suggests, hi parents, I hope you have a great time playing the games and that they create fruitful conversations. The Second Amendment. The Second Amendment to the U.S. Constitution. Okay, so this is actually not a parents-only section. Like, this is open to everybody, apparently. The Second Amendment to the U.S. Constitution was written in 1791 to ensure that all Americans have the right to bear arms in order to protect themselves. Actually, it was written to guarantee a state's right to have its own militia. It even says that. Let's just read the plain text of it. A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. So this was misinterpreted in my opinion, to imply that every human being in America has the right to own a gun with absolutely no regulation whatsoever. That is not what the Founding Fathers intended, and even if it were what the Founding Fathers intended, they didn't have AR-15s back then. It was a different world. They didn't have a fully formed army the way that we do now. And besides that, it's describing a militia necessary to the security of a free state, right? That already exists. It's called the National Guard. And they completely dropped the phrase well-regulated right off the side. They completely pretend that the words well-regulated aren't even in there. and hyper-focus on shall not be infringed. It's just straight propaganda. So the point here is, this is incorrect. It was not designed to ensure that all Americans, every single American, has the right to own a gun. And if it did intend that anyways, they didn't know what we would come up with in the future. Game number 1, pick a side. It's important to be able to protect yourself. That's the lesson you're supposed to learn from this game, apparently. Materials needed, a 6-sided die and a blanket. Okay, this is going to get dark quickly, isn't it? Objective, Team Brave Mushroom Village is split. You must help the villagers decide what they can use for protection from all sorts of dangers. Identify if something will protect you or not by jumping to either Bongo's side or Bonnie's side of the river. Or Bonnie's side of the river, which is supposed to be the blanket. Okay, I thought the blanket was supposed to be like a bulletproof shield or something. Oh my god, this is dark. This is already so dark, dude. Also, in this book, the hand cannon left lumps on people's heads. That's not what hand cannons do in real life. I just want to point that out. All right, I'm not going to read the instructions. It's just some stupid game that's designed to pull children in. And succeeding. Talk about it. Why is it important to have things that will protect you? Number 2, in the story, how did Bongo protect Mushroom Village? Who should use a firearm? Why would it be helpful for adults to have a firearm? Should you play with a firearm? This is just unhinged from reality, dude. This is crazy. Part of the responsibility of owning a firearm is proper discipline in gun safety. Firearms are not toys. They are powerful tools and should be respected as such. When used wisely, however, they can be a powerful means of protection. You should never, ever find yourself in a position where you need to use a firearm for protection. Like I've said multiple times at this point, if you're in that type of situation, you're making split-second decisions that are going to be litigated and poured over for years to come. Are you really sure you want to be in the type of situation where a court is digging through your life, every aspect of it, and your decision-making process to determine if it was a just decision that you made? Kyle Rittenhouse absolutely did not have fun going through all of his stuff. And his stuff isn't even over yet, okay? He's still being sued civilly by the families. They're going to take him for every penny he owns. Do you really want to go through that? You should find other means of protection other than a gun. A gun is not the answer, ever. Alarm systems, cameras, a direct line to like 911, something like that. Fortified walls, these are good answers. A gun is not an answer here. Anyway, this is game number 2, hyena in the middle. Be a good steward of what you have been given, is the lesson. Materials needed, a ball and a timer. You are still protecting Mushroom Village and your food from the hyenas. You must keep your cupcake, or ball, away from a hungry hyena by passing it between members of Team Brave. All right, let's take a look at the instructions on this one. Team Brave forms a circle. A parent stands in the middle of the circle to act as the hyena. The hyena will try to tag whoever holds the ball. Choose one member of Team Brave to start with the ball. Set a timer for 2 minutes. The first Brave member will toss the ball to another player. Whoever is holding the ball must stand in place until he or she has tossed it to someone else. Team Brave starts with 10 points and loses a point for each time the hyena successfully tags them. The hyena starts with 0 points and earns 1 point for each successful tag. Record the final score on the scoreboard. Okay. Sounds like the kind of game you'd have to play with like 10 other kids. I guess they're trying to create the type of environment where like-minded children get together and work together and read this book together. That's the idea here. One-child modification. Pretend you and your parent are on the roofs of Mushroom Village. Toss a cupcake, or a ball, back and forth to each other. After each successful toss, both players take 1 step back and toss again. Your goal is to throw the food back and forth 10 times without dropping it down to the hyenas below. You gain 1 point for every successful catch. Talk about it section. During the game, was it hard to protect the cupcake from the hyenas? Would it be easier if you could have just shot the hyena? No, it doesn't say that either. I'm just playing. Seriously, that's what I've come to expect from this book. Here's number 2, actually. Why is protecting your property important? This is just unhinged stuff, man. This is wrong. Dana suggests someone had to work with Someone had to work hard to buy or make the things that we own. It's our responsibility to take good care of everything we own and not be wasteful. And here's a Bible verse, a quote, Proverbs 27:23. Know well the condition of your flocks and give attention to your herds. This is insane, dude. And what's even more insane is that there are really people out there who are really buying this and reading it to their kids and their kids' friends right now as we speak. Number 3, how do the ideas of protection and responsibility go together? Dana suggests protection and responsibility go hand in hand. As a leader, if you are put in a position of responsibility, one of the main aspects of that responsibility is to protect and care for the people you lead. This is just insane, man. Game number 3, protect the food. Things do not go well when you lose the ability to protect yourself. Materials needed, 6 cupcakes or objects to act as cupcakes, and 6 plush balls, okay? They have to be plush? Brave tip, feel free to substitute cupcakes for any yummy snack. Balls can be any soft item, including sock balls or wadded up paper balls. Okay, they didn't have to be plush. Why did they put plush in then? That's weird. Plush is an actual type of material. It's like this soft fabric that they make like little dolls out of and stuff. My cat, Cashmere, absolutely loves plush items. I'm not really sure why they said plush there, but okay. The hyenas are hungry and attacking. Team Brave, you must protect yourself and your cupcakes from the hyenas, or the parents. Instructions, set up for round 1. All Brave members start with one arm behind their backs. Nearby, they have a stash of 6 cupcakes and 1 ball. Set up for round 2. Team Brave can use both arms, and they have 6 cupcakes as well as 6 balls. If throwing balls inside is a concern, use wadded up paper instead. Okay, here's the gameplay. The hyenas, or parents, start on the other side of the room with full use of their arms and no balls. When the game begins, parents will run toward Team Brave to take their cupcakes. Each hyena can take only 1 cupcake at a time and must set it down on the hyena's side of the room before coming for another one. To protect the food, Team Brave can throw their 1 ball, round 1, or their 6 balls, round 2, at the parents. The round ends when Team Brave successfully hits the hyenas a total of 6 times, or when all the cupcakes have been taken. Until Team Brave lands the 6th hit, the hyenas will keep running, so be quick. At the end of each round, count the cupcakes on each side. The hyenas get 1 point for each cupcake stolen, and Team Brave gets 1 point for each remaining cupcake. Record the final score after each round on the scoreboard. Okay, so it seems to me that this game isn't overtly bad. It sounds like a fine game, but it's designed to get groups of friends together to play it and talk about the premise of the game or of the book. Get friends together to read the book. This is propaganda. That's how it works. That's what it's all about. Spread it to as many people as humanly possible. Insane. After the game's over, if Team Brave is able to gather all 6 balls and cupcakes and put them away within 30 seconds, they can receive an additional point. That's a Brave tip. Okay, here's a talk about it section. Why was round 2 of the game much easier? Did more balls make it easier to protect the cupcakes? Wow, okay. It's not just about playing a game and getting kids together. It's about propagandizing too. Did more balls make it easier to protect the cupcakes? In the story, did the laws on Bonnie's side protect those animals? Why not? This is like Jehovah's Witness propaganda. It's very similar, the questions they pose. I remember reading this stuff when I was little. Similar things. Dana suggests there will always be bad people who break the law and do bad things. This is why we cannot rely on laws alone to protect ourselves. Absolutely. Maybe we need a little bit more than just laws, like alarm systems, like police, like fortified doors. But you know what? We don't have to wonder. We can look to other countries that got it. Hell, we don't have to look outside the country. We can look to Manhattan. Manhattan, New York City, has all but banned guns inside the city. It's made it very difficult to get guns inside the city. You can legally, technically own guns here, but they're not very common. It's not common to find them here. There are almost no guns in Manhattan. And as a result, do you know how many shootings there have been in Manhattan, like mass shootings or school shootings? You know how many school shootings there have been in Manhattan? You know, the excuse that people use for why we shouldn't look to Europe for their statistics is because Europe has basically no guns through the entire area, right? But the United States, you can't ban it on a state-by-state basis because there are guns all over the place outside of the states, right? And people just move the guns from, like, Wyoming to Seattle, Washington, or something like that. But Manhattan is a localized area that has almost no guns. People are allowed to have them, but it's difficult. You have to go through an arduous process of licensure and taking tests and classes and all kinds of stuff. The last mass attack in Manhattan was February 23rd, 1997. 1997 Empire State Building attack. Before that, it was 1990, November 5th. Assassination of Mir Kahane. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. 1972, the Harlem Mosque incident. 1972 again, murder of Joe Gallo. He's an Italian-American mobster. Murder of Malcolm X. I mean, I can count these. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 mass attacks from the looks of it. This is just attacks in Manhattan in the past 100 years. The earliest one I have here is 1906. Murder of Stanford White. Okay, it doesn't matter how many guns there are around surrounding areas. If you reduce the number of guns and heavily regulate them in a specific area, even like one district, even like a 32 square mile area, it reduces the number of attacks unequivocally. So what they're saying here, completely made up. This is why we can't rely on laws alone to protect ourselves. No, we need other ways to protect ourselves. Alarm systems, fortified doors, police. But reducing the number of guns in the area will absolutely improve the situation without a shadow of a doubt. Number 3, Bongo left his coconut cannon on his side when he went to find Bonnie. Why do you think he did that? Of course, to respect laws, to maintain some high degree of morality or something. This is right out of the fascist playbook. There's something called the F scale. I don't know if you've ever heard of this before. I've talked about it a few times. It was written by Theodore Adorno, I believe, back in 1947. And it was intended to determine if somebody had a personality that was likely to follow a fascist. Of course, this is right after Hitler's reign of power. So it was intended to determine if somebody would follow Hitler, basically. Here are the qualities of a fascist, just a few of them. Conventionalism, conformity to the traditional societal norms and values of the middle class. Authoritarian submission, a passive notion toward adhering to conventional norms and values. I mean, that's what we're reading right here. Why did Bongo leave his coconut cannon on his side when he went to see Bonnie? Because he wanted to adhere to the norms, values, morals, and laws that governed him or that governed the area. This is Fascism 101. Adherence to religion and ethics, superstition, obsession with power and toughness, anti-introception, i.e. rejection of inwardness, of subjective, of imaginative, the tender-minded, destructiveness and cynicism, generalized hostility, vilification of the human, and exaggerated concern with sexual goings-on. Any of this sound familiar? This book is teaching children to build in a fascist mindset. Although Bongo knew it was a risk, he respected his government and the law of the land. Bongo obeyed the law when it put him in danger, even as he worked to change that law for the good of the community. You know, this seems like a good lesson, but again, it's building in a fascist mindset. Tally all the points to see who won, and here's the brave summary at the bottom. The world we live in is not perfect, so there will always be hyenas who try to hurt others. Some people, like Bonnie, believe that laws against guns and signs saying no weapons allowed will make them safe. Nobody believes that. Nobody believes that signs alone will make things safe. Reducing the number of guns in an area will absolutely make things a lot safer, dramatically. Australia did this back in the 90s because of a mass attack that happened back then. And it worked. Hasn't been a mass attack in Australia since, to my knowledge, in decades. Sadly, the people who want to hurt others don't often care about laws, and they take advantage of those who do obey those rules. The Second Amendment to the Constitution protects your right to own a gun so that you can defend your family, yourself, and others from those who want to hurt you. Guns are powerful, so we must be very careful, but in the long run, guns provide a protection that is well worth the risk. No, it is not worth the risk at this point. How many attacks have there been in 2023 alone so far. How many attacks were there in 2022? The U.S. had 647 attacks in 2022, mass attacks. 647. That's like 2 per day for every day of the year. That's insane. This problem is not unsolvable. This is something that we can work out. They don't want to, the people who wrote this book. They want to make the problem worse, apparently. Let me know what you think about it in the comments. And don't forget, if you want to see more about this kind of thing, I already released a video on my Telltale Reads YouTube channel. You can click the link in the description or the pinned comment to go there and see the next book in line. So check that out. I think it's pretty interesting.